Skossen 1. Even the angels are stunned you haven't discovered this yet. What if the thing everyone around you already seems to sense about your life is something you've somehow managed to completely miss about yourself? What if the exact gift, purpose, or capability that heaven considers obvious is sitting right there in your everyday life, and you've simply never stopped long enough to actually notice it? I want you to genuinely consider this before you keep reading, because tonight isn't about learning something entirely new about yourself. It's about finally seeing something that's always been there, something so close to you that its very closeness has made it nearly invisible. Are you ready to finally see what's been right in front of you the whole time? You've probably spent so much time looking outward for your purpose, comparing yourself to people who seem to have it all figured out, searching for some dramatic sign that would finally reveal what you're meant to be doing with your life. And in all that searching outward, you've likely overlooked the most obvious clues, the ones sitting quietly inside your own everyday patterns, your own natural instincts, your own repeated experiences that keep pointing toward the exact same thing. Have you spent so much energy searching outward for your purpose that you've completely missed the obvious signs already present inside your own ordinary life? Why the most obvious things are often the hardest to see. Here's something worth understanding clearly. Human perception has a strange blind spot when it comes to things that are too close, too constant, too familiar. You don't notice your own breathing until someone points it out. You don't notice a particular skill until someone else marvels at it, confused why you don't recognize how rare it actually is. The most obvious truths about yourself often hide in exactly this way, disguised as ordinary, simply because they've always been present. What about yourself has become so familiar and constant that you've stopped recognizing how significant it might actually be? Why other people seem to see something in you that you can't see yourself? Think about this honestly. Has anyone in your life ever expressed genuine surprise or confusion about why you don't recognize your own capability, your own gift, your own specific way of moving through the world that clearly sets you apart from everyone else around you? That reaction from other people is worth taking seriously. Sometimes we're simply too close to our own gifts to recognize them the way an outside observer with clearer distance actually can. Has someone ever expressed genuine confusion about why you don't see something in yourself that seemed completely obvious to them? Why this isn't about arrogance, it's about accurate perception. Here's something worth clarifying immediately, because humility can sometimes accidentally become a barrier to this kind of recognition. Acknowledging a genuine gift or purpose isn't arrogance. It's simply accurate self-perception. Refusing to see what's clearly there out of a misplaced sense of humility doesn't make you humble. It makes you inaccurate. And that inaccuracy costs you the ability to actually use what you've been given for the purpose it was intended. Have you been confusing genuine humility with an inaccurate refusal to see something real and significant about yourself? If this is landing somewhere real in you, that's exactly why this series exists. Subscribe now, because part 2 goes even deeper into exactly what this discovery actually is. Why the pattern has been repeating since childhood. Here's something worth tracing back honestly. Whatever this obvious thing is that you've been missing about yourself, it likely didn't begin recently. It's probably been present since childhood, showing up in small, consistent ways that others around you noticed even then, even if you never fully registered the significance yourself. Think back to what came naturally to you as a child, what people consistently commented on, what you gravitated toward without anyone teaching you to. What did you gravitate toward naturally as a child, without anyone teaching you, that people around you consistently commented on? Why you've been undervaluing something because it comes easily to you. Here's a common trap worth recognizing. Humans tend to undervalue anything that comes naturally and easily to them, assuming that if something feels effortless, it can't possibly be significant or valuable. But that logic actually works backward. The things that come most naturally to you are often exactly where your genuine purpose and gifting live, precisely because they were built into you from the beginning rather than laboriously acquired through years of forced practice. Have you dismissed something as unimportant simply because it comes to you easily, rather than recognizing that ease as evidence of genuine gifting? Why Heaven's perspective on your life is different from your own. Here's something worth considering with real openness. From a limited human vantage point, you can only see fragments of your own story, colored by insecurity, self-doubt, and comparison to others. From a vantage point beyond your own limited perspective, your specific gifting, your specific purpose might appear far clearer, far more obvious than it ever could from inside your own uncertain, doubt-filled view of yourself. If you could see your own life from outside your own limited, doubt-filled perspective, what do you think would become obvious that currently feels unclear to you? If this reframe is landing somewhere real, that's exactly why this series exists. Subscribe now, because Part 2 continues exploring exactly what this obvious discovery actually points toward. Why discovering this changes how you spend your remaining time. Here's something worth considering seriously. Once you finally see clearly what's been obvious about yourself all along, it changes how you spend your time, your energy, your attention going forward. You stop pouring effort into things that were never actually meant for you, and start investing in the exact area where your genuine gift and purpose actually live. That shift alone, simply from finally seeing clearly, can transform the entire trajectory of the years ahead of you. How might your daily choices shift once you finally recognize and accept what's been obvious about yourself all along? Truth for tonight: something about you has been obvious, consistent, and significant your entire life, hiding in plain sight simply because it was too close, too familiar, too natural for you to fully recognize its actual value. Other people have likely already sensed it. It's been present since childhood, dismissed because it came easily rather than through struggle, and recognizing it fully, finally, changes everything about how you move forward from here. If you finally allowed yourself to see clearly what's been obvious about you your entire life, what do you think that discovery would actually be? You've spent so long searching outward for purpose, for meaning, for some dramatic sign of what you're meant to do with your life. But the answer has likely been sitting quietly inside your own ordinary patterns, your own natural gifts, waiting patiently for you to finally stop and truly see it. This is only part 1. Part 2 goes deeper into exactly identifying this discovery and what it means for the rest of your life once you finally see it clearly. If this message reached something real in you tonight, don't let it end here. Subscribe now, because Part 2 continues exactly where this left off. It's been there the whole time. Now finally see it. In Part 1, we talked about the obvious thing about you that's been hiding in plain sight. Too familiar, too natural, too close for you to fully recognize its actual significance. So today, let's go further. How do you actually identify what this discovery is specifically? Because vague awareness that something's been missed isn't the same as actually naming it clearly enough to act on it. Are you ready to get specific tonight? Here's what tends to happen even after someone accepts that they've been overlooking something significant about themselves. They still don't know exactly what it is. They sense the truth of the message, but when they try to name the actual gift, the actual purpose, the actual thing that's been hiding in plain sight, everything stays frustratingly vague, just out of reach of clear articulation. Have you sensed that something significant about yourself has been overlooked, but struggled to actually name it clearly? Why looking at what people consistently ask you for reveals something important? Here's something practical worth examining. Think about what people consistently come to you for, repeatedly, across different relationships and different seasons of your life. Advice on a specific topic, comfort during a specific kind of pain, help solving a specific type of problem. That consistent pattern of what people seek from you specifically is rarely random. It's often direct evidence of exactly where your genuine gift lives, confirmed repeatedly by people who aren't trying to flatter you, simply people who instinctively know where to turn. What do people consistently come to you for, across different relationships and different seasons of your life? Why the thing that makes you lose track of time matters. Here's another clue worth examining honestly. Think about the specific activities where you completely lose track of time, where hours pass and it feels like minutes, where you emerge afterward feeling energized rather than drained. That specific experience, often called flow, tends to occur precisely in the areas where your natural gifting and genuine interest align most closely. If something exhausts you despite your effort, it's likely not where your core gift lives. If something energizes you even after hours of effort, pay close attention to what that actually is. What activity makes you lose track of time completely, leaving you energized rather than exhausted afterward? If this is landing somewhere real, that's exactly why this series exists. Subscribe now, because part 3 goes even deeper into exactly what to do once you've named this clearly. Why your own pain often points directly toward yours. Here's something worth considering with real depth: the specific pain you've walked through in your own life. The struggle you understand more intimately than most people around you often becomes the exact foundation for your genuine purpose. Not because pain is required for meaning, but because navigating something difficult builds a specific kind of understanding, empathy, and capability that becomes uniquely valuable to someone else facing something similar. Your wound, healed or healing, might be exactly where your gift actually lives. What specific pain have you walked through that gave you an understanding most people around you simply don't have? Why the compliment you brush off the fastest matters. Here's something worth paying attention to specifically. Think about the compliment you receive most often, that you tend to brush off the quickest, dismissing it with a quick, "Oh, it's nothing," before the other person even finishes speaking. That instinctive dismissal often reveals exactly where your blind spot lives. The compliments we deflect fastest are frequently the ones pointing most directly at something genuinely significant about us, something we've grown so used to that we've stopped recognizing its actual value. What compliment do you receive most often and dismiss most quickly, without ever really letting it land? Why this discovery often connects several separates of your life. Here's something worth examining as you try to name this clearly. Often, This discovery isn't just one isolated skill or interest. It's the thread that quietly connects several seemingly separate parts of your life. A childhood interest, an adult career skill, a specific kind of relationship you keep finding yourself in, a recurring theme in the compliments you receive. When you trace all these separate threads back, they frequently converge on one central, unifying purpose that explains why they've all consistently shown up throughout your entire life. Can you trace several separate parts of your life back to see if they actually connect to one central, unifying thread? If this reflection is landing somewhere real, that's exactly why this series exists. Subscribe now, because Part 3 continues exploring exactly what to do once you've fully named this discovery. Why naming it out loud feels terrifying, even when it's true. Here's something worth acknowledging honestly. Once you start to sense what this discovery actually is, naming it out loud, even privately to yourself, can feel surprisingly terrifying. That fear often comes from the weight of responsibility attached to finally seeing something clearly. Once you name it, you can no longer pretend you didn't know. That's a heavier burden than staying comfortably vague, but it's also the only path toward actually living into what you've been given. Does naming this discovery clearly feel more terrifying than staying comfortably vague about it? And why do you think that is? Why this discovery isn't just about a carer or a skill. Here's something worth understanding as you continue naming this clearly. This discovery isn't necessarily limited to a career path or a marketable skill in the conventional sense. It might be a way of caring for people, a specific kind of wisdom, a capacity for comfort or courage that doesn't fit neatly into a job title, but still represents a genuine, significant gift meant to be used and shared rather than hidden away out of uncertainty about how to categorize it. Could this discovery be something beyond a conventional career or skill? Something more like a way of being that genuinely matters. Truth for today: the discovery you've been overlooking isn't hidden because it's mysterious or complicated. It's hidden because it's obvious, woven consistently through what people ask of you, what makes you lose track of time, what pain you've uniquely understood, and what compliments you instinctively deflect. Tracing those threads honestly, even while it feels uncomfortable, toughenly name what you find, brings you exactly to the discovery this entire message has been pointing toward. If you traced all these clues honestly right now, what do you genuinely believe this discovery actually is? You've learned something today that moves this entire journey from vague awareness into specific clarity. That what people consistently ask of you, what energizes rather than drains you, what pain you understand deeply, and what compliments you deflect fastest, all point toward the same central discovery about yourself. Stay honest. Stay willing to actually name this. Even though it feels vulnerable to finally see it clearly, there's more ahead. Part 3 goes into exactly what to do once you've named this discovery, and how to actually begin living into it fully. If this message is helping you see more clearly, subscribe now, because Part 3 continues exactly where this left off. You're close now. Name it honestly. The second discovery, hidden behind the first one. What if everything you found across this entire journey, the gift you named, the clues you traced, the test you walked through, the ending you already avoided, was never actually the final destination, but simply the door standing in front of something even deeper, something the first discovery was always meant to lead you toward? What if the angels weren't only stunned that you hadn't found your gift yet? They were stunned that you didn't yet know your gift was never actually about you at all. Tonight, we go further than this entire series has gone before. Stay with me completely, because what's waiting behind everything you've already discovered is the actual reason any of this mattered in the first place. You've walked through so much across this journey. You named the thing that was obvious. You traced it back through your childhood, through the compliments you deflected, through the pain you understood more intimately than most. You received it. You survived the test that confirmed it was real. And now, standing here, you might be tempted to think the journey is complete, that you've arrived at the full and final truth about yourself. But there's a quiet ache underneath even that accomplishment, isn't there? A sense that something is still slightly out of reach, something even the discovery itself hasn't fully explained. Have you felt, even after everything this journey has given you, that something deeper is still waiting just beyond what you've already found? Why, the first discovery was always a doorway, not a destination. Here's something worth understanding clearly as we begin this final descent. The gift you named across this entire journey, the pattern people kept confirming, the activity that made you lose track of time, the pain that gave you unusual understanding, was never meant to be the final answer to who you are. It was meant to function as a doorway, a specific, tangible entry point designed to get you moving, to prove to you that discovery was even possible, before leading you somewhere far more significant than the gift itself. Can you sense, now that you're standing at this threshold, that what you found earlier in this journey was preparing you for something, rather than completing something? Why every genuine gift inches to point past itself. Here's something worth sitting with honestly. No genuine gift, no matter how significant, was ever meant to be the final point of your existence. A gift for encouragement exists to point towards something beyond encouragement itself, toward connection, toward healing, toward the specific kind of hope that changes how someone survives their hardest season. A gift for teaching exists to point beyond information itself, toward transformation, toward someone finally understanding something that changes how they live. The gift is never the destination. The gift is the vehicle carrying you somewhere else entirely. If your specific gift is a vehicle rather than a destination, where do you sense it's actually been trying to carry you all along? Why the second discovery is simpler and harder than the first one combined. Here's something worth preparing yourself for, because this second discovery doesn't require the same kind of careful tracing the first one did. It's simpler in its statement, and yet far harder to fully live inside, because it doesn't stay contained to a skill or an activity. It touches identity itself, the actual reason you were placed here at all. The second discovery is this: your gift was never given to you primarily for your own benefit. It was given to you as a bridge, meant to connect something you carry to someone who is currently starving for exactly that specific thing. Are you ready to release the idea that this journey was ultimately about you, and receive instead that it was always about who you're meant to reach? If this shift is landing somewhere real, that's exactly why this series exists. Subscribe now, because this final chapter is only getting deeper from here. This realization feels like lost before. It feels like freed on. Here's something worth being honest about, because this shift can genuinely feel disorienting at first. Realizing your gift was never ultimately about you can initially feel like a small loss, almost like something you thought belonged entirely to you is suddenly being asked to belong to something larger instead. That discomfort is real, and it deserves acknowledgement rather than being rushed past. But underneath that initial sense of loss is something far more freeing waiting to be discovered. The release of no longer having to carry your own significance entirely on your own shoulders. Have you felt a small sense of loss, even in the middle of this deeper truth? And can you sit with that honestly before moving toward the freedom waiting underneath it? Why being a bridge is actually more significant than being a destination. Here's something worth understanding about why this second discovery, once fully received, actually elevates rather than diminishes everything you've found. A destination is static, fixed, existing only for its own sake. A bridge is dynamic, active, existing specifically to connect two things that couldn't reach each other without it. Being told your gift makes you a bridge rather than a final destination isn't a demotion. It's actually a far more active, far more essential role. You become the specific, irreplaceable connection between something real that you carry and someone specific who has been waiting, sometimes for years, for exactly that connection to finally arrive. Diame's understanding yourself as a bridge, rather than a fixed destination, actually feel more significant than the way you understood your gift before. Why the person on the other side of this bridge is already waiting. Here's something worth considering with real seriousness. Somewhere, right now, there is a specific person or a specific group of people already waiting for exactly what you carry. They don't know your name yet. They might not even know precisely what they're missing, but the shape of their need matches the shape of your gift with a precision that isn't accidental. Every day you spend uncertain about using this discovery fully is a day that specific person continues waiting, unaware that the exact thing they need is already prepared and simply hasn't crossed the bridge to reach them yet. Can you sense, even faintly, the shape of the person or people who are specifically waiting for what you now carry? If this wait is landing somewhere real, that's exactly why this series exists. Subscribe now, because there's more waiting for whenever your next season needs this kind of clarity about purpose. Why this second discovery explains every part of this journey you've already walked. Here's something worth looking back on now, with this deeper understanding fully in view. The test you walked through in Part 6 wasn't only confirming your gift. It was strengthening the actual bridge, making it sturdy enough to carry real weight. The warning about discovering too late in Part 7 wasn't only about you missing your own potential. It was about someone else never receiving what only you could have carried to them, had you continued delaying indefinitely. Every part of this entire journey, looked at now through this lens, was quietly preparing not just you, but the bridge itself for the specific crossing it was always meant to make. Looking back across this entire journey now, can you see how every single part was actually preparing the bridge, not just preparing you? Why this second discovery is the actual reason the angles were stunned. Here's the final truth this entire series has been building toward, across every single part. The astonishment described in this journey's very title was never really about you missing a personal gift, a private discovery meant only for your own fulfillment. It was about an entire bridge, urgently needed by someone specific, sitting unbuilt, unused, while you remained uncertain about your own worth. The stunning wasn't about your potential going unrealized. It was about a rescue, a connection, a specific piece of healing remaining undelivered to someone who has been waiting, simply because you hadn't yet accepted your role as the one meant to carry it across. If the entire astonishment of this journey's title was actually about someone else's waiting, rather than only your own self-discovery, how does that change everything you thought this journey was about? the final truth for this entire series. You began this journey believing you were simply searching for something obvious about yourself, hidden in plain sight. And you found it. But underneath that discovery was always something deeper, something that transforms this entire series from a story about self-discovery into a story about rescue, about connection, about a bridge finally being built between what you carry and someone who has been desperately waiting on the other side. That is what heaven has actually been watching this entire time. Not simply whether you would see yourself clearly, but whether you would finally understand that seeing yourself clearly was never the whole point. It was only ever the beginning. Now that you understand this entire journey wasn't ultimately about you, but about who you were always meant to reach, are you finally ready to become the bridge you were always built to be? Series Finale. You've walked through this entire 8-part journey, from first recognizing what had been hiding in plain sight, through tracing every clue, understanding the weight of a single word, receiving the gift fully, surviving the test that confirmed it, avoiding the ending that comes from discovering too late. And now, finally, understanding the deeper truth that this was never only about you at all. You are not simply someone with a gift. You are a bridge, urgently needed, finally ready to carry what you hold to exactly the person who has been waiting for it. If this entire series meant something real to you, don't let it end here. Subscribe now, because there's always another message waiting for exactly the moment you need it most. And this channel isn't finished walking with you yet. You found the gift. Now you know what it was always for. Go, someone is still waiting.